3 hearts, 1 promise. Wang Yibo, Xiao Zhan, and Songyun share an emotional reunion. It had been months since fans had seen them together, Wang Yibo, Xiao Zhan, and Songyun. 3 souls, bound not only by circumstance but by something far deeper: promises, loyalty, and a love that refused to break. The separation hadn't been ordinary. It had been riddled with shadows: Yibo's battles with exhaustion and panic, Xiao Zhan's endless defense of their love against family and industry pressure, and Songyun's quiet suffering as she carried her own storms while holding her silence. But destiny has its own timing. And when it decides that hearts need to find each other again, nothing, not distance, not fear, not even bloodlines, can stop the reunion. It began on a quiet evening, under skies heavy with rain. Xiao Zhan had finished yet another day of juggling schedules he had no heart for. His mind wasn't on the flashing cameras or the scripts piled on his desk. It was on Yibo, still recovering from his last collapse, and on Songyun, who had vanished into the shadows when scandals had clawed too close to home. When his phone lit up with a single message, his heart stopped. "Tonight. Meet me." It was unsigned. But he knew. Xiao Zhan didn't hesitate. He slipped past the city's noise, the cameras, the watchful eyes. His car cut through wet streets until it reached the edge of a lake, a place once sacred to all 3 of them. The place where promises had been whispered years ago. And there they were. Wang Yibo, standing tall but visibly fragile, his eyes reflecting both storms and stars. And Songyun, her gaze soft but steady, holding herself like someone who had carried too many secrets alone. For a moment, no one moved. Then Xiao Zhan's breath hitched. His legs carried him forward before his mind could catch up, and the next second, he was pulling Yibo into his arms. The embrace was desperate, crushing, as though he needed to feel Yibo's heartbeat against his chest to believe it was real. Yibo trembled, his face buried against Xiao Zhan's shoulder. The world had seen him fierce, unbreakable, but here, in the arms of the man he loved, he was just human. Just Yibo. His tears mixed with the rain soaking their clothes, but neither cared. "Don't you ever disappear on me again," Xiao Zhan whispered fiercely, voice breaking. "I couldn't breathe without you," Yibo admitted, his voice raw, fragile, shaking with truths he rarely allowed himself to speak. "But I'm here now. I came back to you." And then, as if pulled by gravity itself, Xiao Zhan turned. His eyes locked on Songyun. For a long time, words failed him. He remembered everything: the sacrifices she had made, the way she had defended them when whispers turned to knives, the silence she had carried while the world blamed her for choices that weren't hers. "Songyun," his voice cracked. He opened his arms. She hesitated, tears blurring her vision. But then she broke, rushing forward until she was wrapped in both of them, her sobs shaking against their chests. "I missed you both so much," she cried, the dam of loneliness finally giving way. "I thought I lost you. I thought everything had ruined us." "You never lost us," Xiao Zhan murmured, tightening his hold. "You never will," Yibo added, his hand finding hers and squeezing it with unspoken loyalty. And so they stood, 3 hearts, pressed together under the storm, their bodies trembling but their souls finding rest for the first time in months. The reunion was not quiet. It was thunder in their veins, lightning in their lungs. It was the kind of moment that rewrote scars and turned broken edges into something whole again. Later, as they moved to shelter in the small boathouse by the lake, the air was thick with unspoken memories. The old wooden walls still held echoes of laughter from a time when things had been simpler, lighter. When their bond had been forged in joy instead of pain. Xiao Zhan lit a single lantern, its glow casting shadows that danced across their faces. He looked at them both: Yibo, exhausted but glowing with the strength of survival, and Songyun, fragile but radiant in her resilience. "We made a promise once," Xiao Zhan said quietly, his voice steady despite the storm in his chest. "Do you remember?" Yibo lifted his gaze, meeting his with eyes that still shimmered with unshed tears. "That we'd never leave each other behind. And that no matter what the world did," Songyun whispered, her voice trembling, "we'd face it together." The silence after her words was heavy, not with doubt, but with memory. Then Xiao Zhan reached out. His hand slid into Yibo's, warm and sure. With his other, he took Songyun's. Slowly, carefully, he placed their hands together until the three of them were bound, palm to palm, heart to heart. Then let's renew it tonight, he said softly, but firmly. 3 hearts, 1 promise. No matter what comes, no matter what they say, we will not be broken. The tears came again, but this time they weren't born of sorrow. They were release. Relief. A letting go of the loneliness that had haunted each of them. Yibo leaned his head against Xiao Zhan's shoulder, his hand still gripping Songyun's tightly. Songyun's other hand brushed against Yibo's trembling one, grounding him, reassuring him that he was not alone. For the first time in a long time, they breathed together. The rain had slowed to a gentle drizzle, yet none of them moved from that fragile embrace. Wang Yibo's cheek was pressed firmly against Xiao Zhan's shoulder, his trembling fingers clutching at the back of his shirt as though afraid he would vanish if he let go. On the other side, Tan Songyun's breath came in shallow gasps, her tears soaking into their clothes as she held on to them both. For months, the three had lived fractured lives, each one weighed down by battles no one else could see. Yet in that moment, with the storm wrapping around them and the cold seeping through their bones, they felt a warmth that no fire could provide. Xiao Zhan was the first to pull back, though only slightly, his hands cupping both their faces. He looked between them, his own eyes swollen and glassy. "Do you feel it?" he asked, his voice breaking. Yibo swallowed, blinking away the blur. "Feel what?" "This," Xiao Zhan whispered, his hands trembling as he touched them both. "That no matter how far apart we were always bound. You never left me. Neither of you." Songyun's lips quivered. She wanted to speak but found her voice lost beneath the tide of emotions. Instead, she nodded, her tears falling freely again. She reached for Yibo's hand, lacing her fingers with his. For a heartbeat, he stiffened, fragile, vulnerable, but then he squeezed back, grounding himself in her touch. "We almost lost it," Yibo muttered, his words raw. "I almost lost everything." "But you didn't," Xiao Zhan said firmly, pressing his forehead to Yibo's, his other hand brushing Songyun's arm. "Because you came back. Because we're here. All 3 of us. Together." The word together seemed to echo through the damp air, louder than the rainfall. As they moved toward the boathouse by the lake, the quiet became a cocoon around them. The wooden door creaked as Xiao Zhan pushed it open, revealing a space worn by time but familiar, the smell of old timber, the faint echo of laughter they'd once shared here long before fame and pain complicated everything. A single lantern lit the space. Its golden glow softened the exhaustion on Yibo's face, illuminated the fragility in Songyun's eyes, and painted Xiao Zhan with a quiet fierceness that only grew when he was protecting those he loved. They sat together on the old bench, shoulders pressed so tightly there was no space between them. No one spoke at first. Instead, the silence filled with small gestures, Yibo leaning slightly into Zhan's side, Songyun's hand never leaving Yibo's, Xiao Zhan brushing his thumb over her knuckles as though reminding her she was just as needed. Finally, Songyun broke the silence, her voice unsteady. "Do you know why I stayed away?" Xiao Zhan's heart clenched, but he didn't interrupt. "I thought I was protecting you," she whispered, her gaze fixed on the flickering lantern. "The world was already tearing you apart. The rumors, the scandals. I thought if I disappeared, maybe they'd stop targeting you. Maybe it would hurt less." Her lips trembled. "But instead, it only broke me. Every night, I wondered if you hated me for leaving. If you thought I'd abandoned you." Yibo lifted his head, his expression stricken. "I never hated you. Not once." His voice cracked, the memory of panic heavy in his tone. "I hated myself for needing you both and not knowing how to ask. I thought I had to carry it all alone. And Xiao Zhan's voice faltered, his throat tightening as tears rose again. I hated the world for forcing us into corners we never chose. For making us believe distance was safer than love." For a long time, they sat in the weight of those confessions. Then Xiao Zhan reached forward, pulling both Yibo and Songyun into his arms again. This embrace wasn't frantic like the one in the rain. It was slower, deeper, like weaving threads back together. "No more running," he said, his voice steady despite the tears streaming down his cheeks. "No more silence. If we hurt together. If they come for us, we face it together. That's the promise." 3 hearts, 1 bond. Yibo's lips trembled as he pressed his forehead against John's chest. And if I break again? Then we'll hold you, Songyun said softly, her hand rubbing circles against his back. The same way you've held us, even when you didn't realize it. Her words loosened something in him. The tight coil of shame and fear that had haunted him since his last collapse unraveled, replaced by warmth. He let out a shaky breath, his tears falling freely. Xiao Zhan kissed the top of his head. There's nothing you could do to make us let go of you. The night stretched on. They spoke in fragments, unfinished sentences carried by touches and glances. They remembered old times, laughter by this very lake, shared secrets whispered under the stars. They acknowledged the pain, the hospital nights, the family clashes, the cruel weight of fame. And then, they returned to what mattered, the love that had survived it all. At one point, Yibo finally lifted his face, his eyes red but steady. Zhongji, Songyun, can we make it again? The promise we made here years ago? Xiao Zhan's chest tightened. He nodded, taking both their hands. We promised to never leave each other behind, Songyun whispered, her voice fragile but certain. And no matter what the world does, we'd face it together, Yibo added, his grip tightening. The lantern flickered as Xiao Zhan sealed the vow, pressing his lips to both their hands. Then let it be again. 3 hearts, 1 promise. Forever. Tears blurred their vision as they leaned into one another, sealing the vow not with grand gestures but with closeness, warmth, and trust. Outside, the rain had stopped. The lake reflected the first light of dawn, soft and golden, a quiet witness to their reunion. For the first time in months, none of them felt alone. Because the truth was undeniable, no storm, no scandal, no shadow could erase what they had. 3 hearts. 1 promise. Forever.